Hi guys, what's going on? Welcome to the video. In this video we're going to be talking about Hector, the update coming to Albion online on June the 7th. So we're going to go over just what it is, how I think it's going to affect the game, my opinions on it, just all this different stuff. In the background we're not going to be doing much, we're just going to be doing some random duels in Carleon. So the first big change is Carleon is going to become a portal to the Outlands for everyone. All the harbours in the Outlands, all the cities in the Outlands are all being removed. So what does this mean for the game? Like, I think this just means that the game is going to be... everyone's going to be forced to Carleon. So I think Carleon's going to be a massive hub, and I think that's what they want. However, I mean, the problem is I think that kills every other city. I think Fort Sterling and Carleon are going to be the only two cities that really mean anything, because Fort Sterling is probably still going to be the sort of trade hub of the world. And then Carleon's going to be just everything else. Like, you can get to every red zone, you can get to all the dungeons there to go farming in the royals. And it obviously is then the portal to the Black Zone. So I kind of like this. However, I feel like it's going to make Carleon so massive, and I think it's going to encourage more PvP, because people are going to have not have to do that 25-minute run to a Black Zone. They're going to be able to just jump to Carleon and go. However, I think there's going to be I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about this change. I'm actually going to read over what he says quickly. So, one of the major gripes we have with the current Outlands is that the cities are not fulfilling their roles of being a home for guilds without territories or players who have been excluded from Royal Continent. For this reason, we've decided to remove all cities in the Outlands as well as harbours. Instead, a massive portal will now be available in Carleon, the centre of the centre city of the Royal Continent. So he's right in what he says. The cities in the Black Zone are kind of underused. No one really buys plots there. No one really uses the auction house there, other than things like cabbage soup and stuff that you can just randomly buy. You don't buy gear there or anything. It's just pointless. So he is right in what he says. The cities are kind of unused. Obviously, the harbours are a bit annoying in themselves. So I've had a 10-man group sit in Aberdown Harbour that have followed me into the Black Zone. Literally gone from the harbour. Half of them jumped to one, half of them jumped to the other. They found out which way I went, and then they followed me out. There's nothing I can do about that. Whereas if I came through the portal at Carleon, it's a lot harder to do that. So I do like it. I can see where he's coming from with it. The portal will lead to different parts of the Outlands, with 4 exits per region of the Outlands. These exits are different per arena of the Outlands. So I believe what he means by arena is that you have Anglia, Cumbria and Mercia of the Outlands. The low regions will have green exits, the mid region will have yellow exits, and the high end region red exits. So I presume by exits it means like a green exits. Like, I presume that you can jump out into Anglia and it'll be safe. You can jump out into Cumbria and it'll be PvP but no loot drop, and then you can jump out into Mercia but it'll be PvP with loot drop. Is kind of how I understand that, which, yeah, I get that. You want the bigger areas, the contested areas, to be full PvP in Black Zone at all times. Using the portal is free of cost, but it will bind you the exit you have used for a short time, as well as the region of the Outlands you travel to for a longer amount of time. This limits how guilds can project their force in the Outlands, while still allowing Carleon to function as a hub for the Outlands. Yeah, so I'm going to go over this a little bit more in a bit with some of the other changes. I think some of the other changes make this a better decision. If this was just a change on its own, I wouldn't like it. However, I think with some of the other changes coming, it might be okay. So just to continue then. Increase rewards and other changes. There are 2 changes coming to the rewards in the Outlands. First of all, the resource distribution is being adjusted. All parts of the Outlands are getting the same amount of resources, but will have different rates of enchanted resources. The higher areas are getting an increased rate. Overall, the Black Zones will have a significantly higher amount of enchanted resources compared to the Royals. This creates a really strong incentive for gatherers to go to the Outlands if they want to get their hands on level 2 and level 3 enchanted materials. So I like this. I like the fact that tier 7, I like the resource distribution at the moment. So tier 7, tier 8 is Black Zone only. Tier 6 and below is Royals. I don't like the fact there isn't a tier 2 zone in the Black Zone. I think that has to change. I think people need to be able to gather tier 2 so people can live in the tier 2 areas. People can live in the Black Zone and not have to come to the Royals for tier 2. So I kind of like it. However, no, there's no however. I do like it. I think Black Zone should be the high risk, high reward, and it kind of will be with this, in that level 2, level 3 resources being all over the place means that also creates a lot more PvP fights. If someone sees a tier like 7.3 or a 6.3 or whatever, people are going to be fighting for it, and that incites PvP. That's good. Secondly, in order to make GVG more attractive, we are changing the way Watchtower territories work. Watchtowers now will be the only place in the world where you can find tier 8 resources. And bang, I don't like this. This whole update is ruined by that one sentence. On top of that, resources will respawn at the start of the prime time of the territory. This means at the time, or right after the first GVG fight, you can begin to harvest the resources. So what does this mean? This means Watchtowers are now necessary. Obviously, there are a lot more fights for them, which is good. However, resources are going to spawn right at prime time, so GVG time, which means there's always going to be massive fights for them, which means Zerg guilds win. In big fights, in big open world fights, Zerg guilds win. Myself, I'm in quite a small guild. I'm in the fleet. I wouldn't have a chance in hell of getting that, because how would I? I wouldn't be able to compete with Red Army, who have a couple of thousand members, EOS, who has quite a big amount of members, Tea Party, who has a big amount of members. We just wouldn't be able to compete with them, which means all you're doing with this update is you are allowing tier 8 resources to bottleneck small guilds. You're allowing the big guilds to have tier 8 and the small guilds to not, in my opinion. Just to carry on with what he says, because I will go into this big. This is the big thing about this update that a lot of people are talking about. If your guild does not own a Watchtower territory, you can still get your hands on tier 8 resources, as you can now raid Watchtowers and collect its high-end resources, even if it does not belong to you. So, yes, you can go into a Watchtower. So let's actually find a Watchtower, shall we? There we go. So this is Heart of the Forest Watchtower. This is owned by Red Army. So, I actually want to click on the map. There we go. So we could go into that very small square and we could go and take resources. However, we then have guards to compete with. We then have anyone in the zone. We also might not be the only people. I get they're trying to encourage PvP, but Red Army are a massive guild. Bear in mind, if you actually look at the map at the moment, all the Watchtowers, Red Army. Who actually owns that one? I don't know. Okay, don't. Oh, that's the Gentleman. So you've got Red Army, Gentleman, Red Army, Red Army, Red Army, Red Army, Red Army. Yeah, who is that? Yeah, that's Envy. Red Army, Niflgaard. Don't know who that is. Like, the majority of the big territories, the big Watchtowers, are owned by big guilds. They're going to then. Fine, they won't be able to take everything, which means some resources will be opened up, but they will be able to control the market when it comes to tier 8 resources, and they will have so much that they can just deal with it. And I just don't like that. I don't like the idea that small guilds are going to be screwed over. This game needs the small guilds, lots of small guilds, to be continuing and working, and without like limiting tier 8 resources to just big guilds, which is kind of what this update is going to do. It's just going to hurt them in the long run, I think. Lastly, we're currently testing out the Anti-zerg display in the Outlands on the Albion online live server. This mechanism shows groups of players more than 10 on the minimap and should in general provide more balanced fights and overall action. Right now we are analysing the data we have collected from this test in order to decide if we should keep this display enabled or not. No, you should not, because all guilds are doing are splitting off into 9-man groups, right? So I got ganked the other day by a 30-man Tea Party group that didn't show as a Zerg. Why? Because they split off into 9-man groups. Split off, spread out for people. Even a 9-man group can kill someone easily, and as soon as they see someone, they can just run to them. It also tells them when people are nearby. So if you run as a 9-man group and you run into someone, you're gonna blob on the map. You're gonna come into you're going to show on this anti-zerg display, which means they know exactly where they are. Like, you've just given them a way to find people. It's so easily abused, and it doesn't actually benefit the small players much, because anyone who's ganking as more than 10 should be aware of this mechanic and will split themselves up. So overall, let's just sort of recap as to my opinions on this and how I think it's going to change the game. I think Royals are going to be all based around Carleon now. I like that to a point, because Carleon was kind of just PvP only. You only went there if you were hellgating. Other than that, it didn't really get used. However, Carleon's going to be the hub of everything. I think that's what they want to do. I just think they've kind of killed every other town in the process. Like, Lyndhurst is already a dead town. If you then take away the harbour near it, people are just going to move to Carleon. The resource distribution I like how they're actually making it even more risk-reward. So there's going to be more people in the black zone, but better rewards for it. And I like that. That's good. Bottlenecking tier 8 resources, I think, is just a barking mad idea. I think you're going to give every Zerg big guild the possibility to dominate this game, because if you imagine then a Zerg running around in full tier 8 gear because they can control the resources, it's just going to be crazy, and it will incite more PvP, but I think it's still going to be unbalanced PvP, in that it's going to be Zerg v Zerg potentially, and even then I just don't see how you can only Zerg one thing at a time, whereas Red Army could have a gatherer sat at every single Watchtower, and they have the numbers to do that. And this isn't just based on Red Army, by the way, but they're obviously the guild that owns probably the most territory at the moment, especially in their alliance. In fact, actually, let's have a look. Territories owned. So this week, Red Army as a guild own 63 territories. As an alliance, Oops owns 73. EOS owns 43. Tryhards own 31. So that was the other guild, Zorn. Okay. So yeah, they own, like, in them three alone, they probably own more territories than every other guild combined. In fact, in them two alone, they probably own more than every other guild combined. Which just means that them two guilds have just been given a free amount of resources. Why do people use hell artifacts in duels? Yeah, so my opinions. I like the fact that they're trying to incite more PvP. I would prefer that they didn't use the resources as a thing for that. They didn't go, okay, so you will go there because otherwise we'll take your resources off you. It's kind of what they've done with tier 8 resources. I think there's already fights over the important tier 8 resources. Like, there was a fight the other day over an 8.2 mammoth, 8.2 tree, and then there was a mammoth walking around, so they killed that as well. There was a big fight for that. That was really fun. But just making it that big guilds can control the tier 8s, this is something that a lot of people are stuck on, and I can see why. I think you've just handed the game to big guilds, and I don't think that's the idea. I think Albion needs the smaller guilds to survive. But anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed watching this. Like, I didn't mean this to be really negative. I like some of... I don't know what this guy's doing. I like some of the changes. I like the fact that they're making things risk-reward. However, they're making GVGs just have the reward with no real risk. They're just making Watchtowers go, okay, so you have a Watchtower, therefore you get tier 8 resources. Because they're not going to be able to contest all of them. And during dead hours, they're just going to get free resources, and that's going to make the game even more snowbally to the bigger guilds than it already is at the moment. So yeah, it's a bit difficult. I'm not sure how I like this change, but oh, sorry guys, I'm actually still in Discord. I'm not sure how I like this, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I hope they make some changes just to the tier 8 resources. I know there's been a lot of people doing math around it just to say that it's a bit of a crazy idea. Just a sort of a general announcement. Move all your stuff away from any black zone towns, any black zone cities, the harbours, all of that, because they're all being removed on June 7th. I think they're being changed, like they'll be moved away, but you don't want to risk it. Just move your stuff away from there now. It's a lot safer. Other than that, guys, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that normal stuff, and I'll see you next time. Catch you later, guys.